Good morning, fourth grade. Today you have lesson 94, and you are going to continue using the many multiples. The last lesson, you learned that you can have common multiples, meaning out of the numbers like 3 and 4, which ones share some that are the same? 12, for example, or 24. So now we're going to add the word least. So it's still common multiple, but now once you get those common, you want to find the one that's the least, the smallest. So that is the new skill for today. Otherwise, you're still practicing your multiples. So for example, you're going to do the 2 white squares, then the 2 purple squares together as comparison. So I'll go ahead and do the first one with you. So when we're saying multiples, it means this number here, 3 times whatever, and whatever the answer or the product is what your multiple is. So we always start with the number times 1. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. You might notice that we went a lot further this time than just the first 5, because when we're trying to find common multiples, sometimes you have to go a little further before you get to a one that's shared. And especially if you're wanting to find the least common, you're going to need to find more than just one that's common. All right, so ultimately, you could stop doing your 4s as soon as you find one that matches what you wrote in the 3s, but for the sake of today, we're going to find more than one that's common, and then out of those 2, we're going to choose the one that's the smallest. So now we're going to do our 4s. So 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, then 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16, 4 times 5 is 20, 4 times 6 is 24, and 4 times 7 is 28. Now I want to go through and look and see which ones are the same. I'm going to always start with the smallest one again. Is there a 3 on the bottom row? No. Is there a 6 on the bottom row? No. How about a 9? Nope. A 12. Yes, I do see a 12, so I'll highlight that one. You could circle it. Do I see a 15 on the bottom? No. How about 18? No. 21? No. 24? Yes. Highlight that one. And then we are left with 28. So now I'm going to write those 2 on my line that says common. These are the 2 that are the same. I have a 12 and I have a 24. Now, which one of those is the smallest? It is 12. All right, so you're listing your multiples, then go and find which ones are the same, and find out which one is the smallest of those. Let's try the next row. Starting with 5 times 1 is 5, then count by 5s, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. All right, so we made it up to 40. Now the next one we're going to do is tens. This is pretty simple. Now I am going to share a little secret with you. One of the products that you are always going to have as a multiple for both numbers is if you were to multiply the 2 numbers together. So for example, 3 times 4 is going to be 12, and that is going to be a multiple for both the number 3 and the number 4 because you're multiplying 3 times 4, or you're multiplying 4 times 3. And in that case, that was the first one that was actually the same, the first one that was common. It won't always be the first one, so that's why you need to list out all of them. You can't just say, oh, 3 times 4 is 12, 12 is my multiple, and be done. You have to do all of them because there might be one that's smaller that comes first. So, for example, the reason I brought that up is if I count by tens, I already have a match. in my very first number. But 5 times 10 is not 10. 5 times 10 is 50. So I know 50 will be one of my common multiples, but if you look over here, I didn't even go all the way to 50. I could say 45 then 50, but I don't have to because I'm going to have enough other ones. All right, so now let's actually do our tens. I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. And now let's see which ones are the same. So we said 10 already, 15 is not on the bottom, but 20 is on the bottom. 25 is not, but 30 is. 35 is not, but 40 is. So the reason I didn't even have to go to 50 is because I already have a lot of common multiples because 10 is a multiple of 5. So you're going to have a lot of them that are shared. So I'm just going to write the ones that I highlighted. And I will include 50 over here just because we went to 50. All right. Now LCM stands for least. Which one is the least? 10 is the smallest one. That is the same. All right. Please go ahead and do 6 and 9 on your own. And 8 and 12 to get some good practice. Okay. Either pause the video at this point or stop at that section and skip down to number 2 with me. For number 2, we have the first one being money. So when we're multiplying by money, we're multiplying just like usual, and then at the end, we're going to come back and see how many digits are after the decimal, and that's how many, you'll keep your decimal, and then you'll move it over 2 digits because that's how many digits there were after the decimal. So otherwise, we solve it as usual. So 9 times 5, we have 45, so you carry the 4, put the 5. Mine's not going to be lined up, so I'm going to erase that real quick. All right, then we do 9 times 2, 18, plus our 4 more, 19, 20, 21, and 22. Okay, so since I have 2 spots after the decimal, I know I would put 2 spots after the decimal. This time it lines up. It won't always line up. All right, go ahead and solve the rest of that on your own. I think you can handle that. All right, on B, you have 3 digits below. That means you need to have 3 partial products. You need to have a partial product for your ones place. Then you need to have a partial product for your tens place. Finally, you will have a partial product for your hundreds place. After that, then you can add your partial products to get your answer. Also, don't forget, once you are finished with your ones place, you need to have a 0 for that one. Same with down here, but then you're actually going to have 2 zeros because you have 2 place values that you are done solving. Because you'd be solving, like in the blue, 400 times 9. Not just 4 times 9, it's 400 times 9. All right, moving over to C. For division, just go ahead and bring up that decimal point right away and your $sign right away. Then divide as usual. So how many times does 3 go into 3? 1 time. And 3 times 1 is 3. Subtract it. You'll have 0. Sorry, I wrote a 1. It's a 0. Then I meant to bring down the 1. How many times does 3 go into 1? It doesn't. It does not work. It's 0. So then I do 3 times 0 is 0. If I subtract that, I have 1 left. Oh dear, and it just erased all of it. Sorry, that was supposed to be a 1 right there. I was bringing it down. That was 0, which was 1. Okay, now I can bring down my 0 here. And I'm going to go, how many times does 3 go into 10? All right, go ahead and either pause to finish solving that while you're thinking about it, or skip on over to D with me. On D, we have a 2-digit number, so in order to estimate how much you're going to multiply by, we're going to round 46. Which 10 does 46 most closely round to? Hopefully you were thinking 50, so that means I can skip count by 5s and then add my zeros. Okay, well, because I know 46 doesn't go into 1, 46 doesn't go into 14. So, well, I see a 150 right here, but that's too much. Let me try 100. So I'm going to try 46 times 2. Okay, so 6 times 2 is 12. 2 times 4 is 8. 1 more is 9. 92. That doesn't seem like very much. So I better try 46 times 3. I know this says 150, but remember, that's if we did it by 5, or when we counted by 50s. The real number is just 46. 4 times 3 is 18. Carry my 1. 4 times 3, sorry, I think I said 4 times 3. I meant 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 4 is 12. 1 more is 13. 138. Well, that seems a lot closer. So it was not the 2, it was actually the 3. Okay, go ahead and finish the rest of that. That was a nice little review. And then please turn to the back side. All right, this is the whole reason why you are learning least common multiple. The words are pretty similar. You have the word least. You have the word common. But it does not say multiple anymore. It says the word denominator. That is your bottom number. So we need to find the common denominator anytime we are trying to add. So let's say I'm like doing 3/8 plus 2/4. I cannot do this because my denominators are not the same. So we have to make them the same. So it says in your directions to find the least common denominator of 2 or more fractions, find the least common multiple. Find the least common multiple of the denominators. After finding the least common denominator, change each fraction to an equivalent fraction having the least common denominator. We want the smallest one so you don't have to reduce. So when I was saying over on the other side, like 4, if I was saying like 4 times 3 equals 12, then I could have the 12 as my denominator. So for this one, I could do 8 times 4 is 32. Okay, so I could have 32 and 32 as my denominator, but then I'm going to have to reduce my fraction. So we want to find the least common, do not just multiply that. Okay, so for the example, they said, oh, here's 2/3, 4/5, and 7/15. Yes, you will have 3 numbers sometimes because you guys have already had problems where you have, I'm going to come back up here again. If it was saying 2/3 plus 4/5 plus 7/15, you cannot do that. You have to make them the same. Okay, so for example, you have your multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Took your multiples of 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and your multiples of 15, 15 and 30. Well, if I compare my 2s or my 3s and my 5s, the first one and only one that matches up is 15. Well, then when I go to do 15, that's the first one also. So the least common multiple, the only multiple that's common, is 15. So that means my denominator has to be 15. So this is how you're going to do this. If you know your denominator is going to be 15, 3 times what gets you to 15? You made it to 15, but how did you make it to 15? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. It was 3 times 5. So that means that's what I'm going to do on the numerator. Whatever I do on the denominator to get from 3 to 15, you've been practicing these equivalent fractions. Whatever you did to get from 3 to 15, you do on the top also. So 2 times 5 is 10. That's where they magically got that number from. It's not magical. That's just that they had to figure out what they did on the bottom and do the same on the top. So 5 times what is 15? Skip count by 5s. 5, 10, 15. Oh, 5 times 3. So that's what I'm going to do up top. 4 times 3 is 12. My numerator is 12. And then, 5 times what is 15? 5 times what? Meant to be a question mark there. 5 times what equals 15? 1. So if I'm going to do times, sorry, this one was times 3. I do times 1 up here. 7 times 1 is 7. Now if I were to add these up, I can do 10 fifteenths plus 12 fifteenths plus 7 fifteenths because they all have 15. So my answer is going to have something with a denominator of 15. Now I can add these up right there. Okay, so I know this seems like a lot, so I'll work through the first part with you. Now, they did the white one. Let's go through it though. All right, you're taking your denominator and you're going to write out the multiples. So they did 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Then they did 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Find ones that match. Well, I see 10 matches, 20 matches, and 30 matches. So they wrote 10, 20, 30. Which one was the smallest out of those? 10. Okay, so that means our denominator is going to be 10. All right, so they turned the denominator into 10. Well, we have to figure out what would that numerator be. 5 times what equals 10? 5, 10. I multiply it 2 times. I do the same with the numerator. 10 times 1 is how I get to 10, so I do the same thing up top. Okay? All right, I will go slow with you because this is new. We're going to do 2s and 6s. We're finding our common multiples. So 2 is a small number, so we're going to write a lot of 2s, but it's good. It's skip counting by 2s. We can do that pretty easily. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. Wow, we went quite a ways. All right, now let's start with 6s. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 5 is 30. And 6 times 6 is 36. Now let's find which ones are the same. Down below, do I see any 2s? No. 4s? No. So in fact, I'm just going to go like this. 2, no. 4, no. 6, yes, I see a 6. Okay. 8, no. 10, no. 12, yes, I see a 12. Here's a 12, here's a 12. I don't see a 14. I don't see a 16, but I do see 18. That matches. No 20, no 22. Oh, but here is 24. And I'm done with my top row, so that means there's not a match for 30 and 36. But would that work if I kept going with my 2s? 24, 26, 28, 30. So yes, 30 would have been if we would have kept going. But we have enough. So now I'm going to copy those down in order. It's important to do it in order so you can see which one is your least. So we wrote 6, 12, 18, and 24. Which one of those is the smallest number, the least? 6. So that means our least common denominator must be 6. And guess what? They did it for you. They wanted to make sure that since you're learning how to find the least common denominator, they put the common denominator just in case. But we need to figure out the numerator. So 2 times what equals 6? Skip count by 2s. How can I get from 2 to 6? 2, 4, 6, I did times 3. So up top, I'm going to do the same thing. 1 times 3 is 3. Now let's check and see, does this make sense? Is 3/6 the same thing as 1/2? It is. All right, and bottom number, 1/6. How do I get from 6 to 6? Well, it's the same number. I don't have to do anything. It's times 1. So we do times 1 up top. 1 times 1 is 1. So it's 1/6. All right, I would like you to try these 3 on your own. If you have any questions or you get stuck, please raise your hand. I will help you out, especially when you get to this section here. I know that's probably the hardest part. Just think about equivalent fractions. You've been practicing equivalent fractions. We are piecing everything you've learned together. You've learned multiples. That's one step you've learned. You learned how to find the common ones. That's a second step. You learned to find the least. That's a third step. Today you learned, oh, that least is actually my denominator. It's called the denominator, least common denominator. So you're kind of learning the fourth step, and then you already learned the fifth step, but we have to put it together with all these others. So really, you have a lot of steps that you can do. Just take your time. This is not something to do quickly. All right, the rest of the lesson, go back and finish and do these last 3 sections. And then when you are done, you have the rest of the time as fracs or reflex for the day. But raise your hand if you have any questions. Good luck.